The following podcast episode might contain coarse language and subjects not suitable for younger audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Live from a not-so-sleepy little town comes a podcast for a mobile game. Really? Anyhow, your hosts, a content creator and an artist trying to come up with wild ideas while also talking about whatever. It's the Goosebumps HorrorTown TerrorVision Podcast!
Good evening and welcome to the first ever episode of the Horrorland TerrorVision Podcast, or HTTV for short. I'm Grim, and welcome to the new year. Yes, we're into 2024, and this has been a little project I wanted to work on for such a long time. It's been a while, but I've always been trying to figure out how to get this going and what to do. And one of the other problems is that I wanted a co-host with me. And I had an idea in mind, but unfortunately, they have issues. So, we'll end up dropping there. But I ended up finding someone else, another member within the community that I think would have been best. So, why don't let him introduce himself?
Hello, I'm Troy McClure. You may know me as the fan artist of Goosebumps HorrorTown that's mostly seen in a lot of Grimm's Goosebumps HorrorTown videos.
Oh my God, it's Playboy Vampire. Yes, the the guy I keep on showing his artwork for, and he's been a great artist as far as showing off within this community. And I figured, who better else than the person I keep advertising for free?
Yeah.
But you seem fine with me showing it off, and I don't think I've ever gotten complaints with people showing their artwork. So, fingers crossed that still stays that.
I mean, it's great publicity, right? I mean, if they wanted to see more, they should check out my socials. Not
Yeah,
really on Twitter a lot, but when I do, I just usually like retweet a bunch of stuff.
yeah, or I guess it's called X now, unfortunately.
Well, I'm still gonna call it Twitter. I don't care what
Yeah, I know.
Elon says.
I'm calling it Twitter too, and that's screw Elon. And that's the X fascination. Anyways, so before we talk about this podcast, why don't the viewers get to know a little bit about you as far as like they know you as the artist behind some of the stuff. But what got you into Horror Town? When did you start doing this, and what kind of led you to be like, I'm a fan of this game?
Well, I was actually a fan of the Goosebumps series in the 90s, like many other people who get into this franchise. But I'm the type of person that like enjoys the more simplistic style of games, not like anything like FPS or like uh, some other mobile games like Candy Crush or Tetris or anything like that, or even stuff like the Raid Shadow Legends.
Yes, that
But
we all know about Raid Shadow Legends.
oh god, that was a fucking thing for like no, sorry, that was a thing for like 2020.
Yeah, it's still going on now. I mean, it's surprising that I mean, I guess in some cases they haven't lowered themselves down to do cringy ads, but then sometimes it's like, well, maybe the cringy ads helps when it comes to publicity, but I digress. So,
I
what?
mean, yeah, it's cringy, but it puts food on the plate, right?
Yeah, I know. Like, when did you start coming into the game? Did you come in like when the first announcement happened back in 2017, or was there an event that you kind of came into? Like, when did you become part of the being a horror towner?
I think it was somewhere around when the game was still in its early days.
So you would
Like,
say, like, I think it came out October, like in soft beta launch in 2017, but it officially came out in May 2018.
yeah, somewhere around like 2018, because I remember I was around. I think it was before or during the haunted Halloween.
Okay, so you came in just around that time then.
Yeah, like what? Like no. Now that I think about it, I think it was like a bit after the event because I know that when I started up the game, there was like a whole bunch of stuff I couldn't get a hold of, and what ended up happening was like I didn't really know how everything worked, and I didn't know that there was an event going on and stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just like a basic little town builder game. I didn't know there were any like special events or anything. And then when I saw one for like Invasion of the Body Squeezers, I'm like, ooh, this sounds fun. So I decided to give that a shot and had some fun, doing the event. I couldn't
So,
complete a whole lot of the events, but like as the years have gone by, I started to, tunnel focus onto that as much as possible.
yeah, so it sounds like you kind of started around the same time I started the YouTube channel focusing on with this game. And for those who don't know, I've been with this game since the very beginning, but I haven't been active on it until Invasion of the Body Squeezers. And even then, I was just kind of loosey-goosey with it. I was just like, meh, I'll do a thing because I saw Casey doing it. And I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. I like Goosebumps. Might as well. And then here we are now, doing a podcast on the video game. Speaking
Really,
of, we
and
might.
what really drew me closer to the game, honestly, was the original character designs for a lot of the characters. Like there were like character models that I thought, hey, that looks like a way more cooler version than the original, right? So as soon as like I got more into the game, I decided to experiment with some ideas, toy around with some concepts for like future characters, coming up with my own original concepts for them and stuff like that. Yeah.
You hear that, developers? You basically are doing the Tim Tecopus viewship of, getting cool artwork and go, ooh, I want that. I want to read this
Pretty
book.
much.
Well, at least they got the thing down, but yeah. So you might be curious, for those wondering what this whole podcast is about, for the most part, it's going to be focusing on the game Goosebumps HorrorTown, but it's also going to focus on the IP of Goosebumps. So usually it's just about anything we can think of on the top of our heads. And although we'll try to keep this as PG as possible, as you probably have heard in my beginning bit, it's may lead into other things. So viewer discretion is advised. But your own
And
problems.
don't let your kids watch this.
Yes, I know. Like a kids program, not for kids. But that's not the first time Goosebumps has gone into the lore of that. So I think they know what they're expecting at this point. Anywho, so the topic of this whole this first podcast, and hopefully not last, is that we're going to be doing this monthly. And the idea behind it is that we're going to be taking a look at this game's update, kind of discussing it, what we've done, the things we like, things we don't like, things of that nature. And then we have another topic of discussion, whether that being something that's going on right now, things we'd like to see in the game, or even ideas for future stuff. And of course, things are always changing, so we're more than happy to hear feedback and maybe even get some guests on here. We can probably go there, but usually it's not a set in stone type of thing. But basically, the main topic is focusing on this particular game, but the more franchise as a whole type of thing.
Yeah, think of like the whole review part of the game itself is like a grim reviews thing, but with someone equally or someone more annoying joining the show.
Yes, limiting that makes it less boring than watching my review of what was it, the Valentine Night Fever. So, if you're familiar with that, then yeah, this is basically this gist here. But, we got another
Yeah,
commentary person, so it makes it less boring instead of
yeah,
listening to me all day.
it'll make it.
It's
Yeah, it'll
less it's
make
a
you think.
dictator.
Who
It's
the
a
hell
less
is
of
this?
yeah, it's less of a dictatorship and more of a political, like, no, well, let's not go back to political. That's the last thing I want to go for. Back into Be Afraid.
Be afraid.
God. I'm grateful that they put me in the game, but why on earth did they put me in that update? It's like, oh God. Uh,
I forgot that's where you first appeared, isn't it?
well, yeah, I mean, technically speaking, my involvement was back in like this, you know, Shop Here Drop Dead, but I've talked long about that, and I have a video on that, so shameless plug
Well,
here.
I mean, like when your first character appeared, like officially in the game. It was
Yeah.
it'd be afraid.
And what's funny was that the reason why it's called HTTV is because of that. And originally, I wanted to see if our dear friend Erasmo would come on, but they're currently doing other stuff, and I was wondering how to do this. It was just like, oh, my partner in crime, he's currently away. He's unfortunately passed in this mortal plane. You know, he's getting his voice changed. So, unfortunately, he's out of recovery right now. So I'm kind of alone. So I had to grab somebody off the street, which I think they're using your
It's like, hey,
avatar.
you want to join a podcast?
Yeah, what your avatar is. I think
Just take the
your hashtag color do not steal OC of Susie, which I think is meanie.
Yeah, meanie snowflake.
It fits.
Nothing
I mean, the
personal.
color's dynamic and everything like that. And it's like, yeah, Susie's your favorite character, so it's like, yeah, you know what, it fits. I use the official artwork of my OC, and you use your own. But it's fun regardless to do this, and we'll
Yeah.
see how this turns out. But yeah. So before we talk about our main discussion, something I wanted to throw out is because this is the new year, something interesting
Are you gonna,
happened.
I was going to say, are you going to mention the January 1st event?
I was gonna get to that.
Oh, okay, continue.
No, it's okay. Before we discuss on our stuff, something interesting did happen recently. Did you know that Steamboat Willie is now in public domain? Yes, the thing that Disney has been fighting the public domain office for such a long time has finally decided to cave in. And this is a big thing moving forward because now that means a lot of things in the past is starting to come into public domain now, which has been, like for us, we haven't had something like this happen for a while, but it's great that we're kind of seeing this now. Although this is not meaning like we're going to see Mickey Mouse in any shape or form in the game at all as some sort of horror oriented, but it's an interesting fact to know that at some point when we're long dead and buried, at some point someone will be able to have Slappy be an official non-public domain character.
I was going to say, well, if Blood and Honey is anything to go off by, just give it
Don't you
a
dare
couple of
mention
days or weeks.
that. God,
Give it a couple of
it's
weeks,
the
and
one
I'm
thing
pretty
you
sure
got to
someone's
do.
going to announce that there's going to be like a Steamboat Willie horror movie.
That's going to end up happening. Just, I don't
Yeah,
know.
they did that with the Grinch. They did that with Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, but the Grinch though, they still had the copyright, so they got kind of screwed and parodied. Like they didn't say his name. It's like, oh no, he's the mean one. Whoa,
Well, yeah, because there's like
copyright is
when something goes into public domain, as far as I understand this, when something goes into public domain, there are certain aspects of a character that you can use so long as it's not a direct copy, you know? Like, for
yeah.
example, when you look at the difference between like Disney's Winnie the Pooh versus Blood and Honey, like it's still a bear with a red shirt and everything, but there are key differences that separate the Blood and Honey one from the Disney version.
Yeah, like this one decides to kill people, while the other one is more friendly and cuddly, and you're like, oh bother, I just wanted to have some honey. And he's like
Well,
a stuffed
I'm
bear.
speaking more on a visual aspect.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to have some fun here with a sad topic,
Oh,
but the whole thing is not supposed to be talking about this. It's just more so a fun little Easter egg fact on the side because that's the last thing we want to do is go off topic and just go somewhere else. And our first ever episode is not talking about the game, but some other stuff that had nothing to do with it at all. But
it's like,
anyways,
why are these guys talking about Winnie the Pooh?
when are they going to get to the core town?
Oh, bother.
Yeah. So if you're watching this video out of curiosity, and if you're not a fan of the game, the gist of it is basically it's a what if scenario of what if you can take the Goosebumps IP, like the characters, monsters, and whatnot, and have them be a living organism in one suburban town. And we kind of did see a little bit of this in like the Horrorland books because they didn't mention other references and all that, like with
If I can point out some things that you probably may have mispronounced.
Oh, and we're just starting this now. You're making
Well,
fun of me.
I'm very nitpicky about these. I just have to say it.
Oh
It's for
God, this is
clarity's sake.
see, this is great. This is why I have you on here to start this off.
Okay,
Everyone knows I don't
so
know how to speak
he
properly.
doesn't
You know
really
that just
mean like a singular organism type of thing, like a cell or an egg monster or whatever. What he means is like a conjoined universe of sorts, where like every Goosebumps monster lives in the same universe.
well, thank you for
It
making me look like an idiot. But yes,
well, it's,
he's correct. That's what I meant to say.
yeah,
But my stupid straw brain decided to go ahead and say other things, and which is not like if you're God, here I go again. If you know, you've seen my stuff, you know exactly where I'm going with this. I've always done this, so it's not abnormal. But if you're new to this, you're kind of like wondering. But
you
anyways,
digress.
yes, yeah, let's do the meme. I digress. uh, God, this is gonna be fun. This is why I have you on here. Anyways, so regardless of that, this is the first time that we actually see an official IP that actually ended up combining books into an one medium. And what's interesting about it is that you kind of not like you get this certain familiars like get Slappy and you know um, Mortman and things of that nature. But then you get some
Yes.
obscure characters like Curly and the fact that he had his sisters like no one knew about except if you're really like it's fun that as a someone who's a fan of Goosebumps kind of coming in here and kind of going like ooh they know their thing. They're kind of doing little Easter eggs even in the dialogue.
One thing I probably might want to mention, this is just like a little theory of mine, but I feel like one of Curly's sisters, Boo, might have been a reference to the first Tales to Give You Goosebumps book.
That's what I
Because
was
some people
thinking.
say that, yeah, because some people say that that's Curly, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't look like Curly because Curly's been kind of decked out to look like this 90s cool kid vibes,
Yeah,
you know?
originally I think Curly was supposed to look like that. That was hence the name, right? Because of curly hair. But then they kind of, gave him a buzz cut and it was just like, nah, he's a cool skeleton now.
And he rides skateboards and plays pogs
He
and
he
all this other
suffers he
wicked stuff.
suffers sonicitis. He has the 90s stank all over him.
I
It's the
mean,
type of
he's
character
almost
that
as
rides
90s as
skateboard.
like 90s Chuck E. Cheese, you know?
Oh God, the Avengers Chuck E. Cheese, I think that's what they're called. His called. Yeah, yeah. Anyways,
God,
we're
it's
getting
an
off
invention of
topic here,
Chuck E.
but
Cheese.
yeah. So the way we're going to be doing this is that we're going to be talking about current updates that's going on with the game, which unfortunately right now we don't know officially what's going on. Like our hope is that we start getting more of common updates like events and whatnot, but I think because of the size of the team and the fact that this game came back from the dead, that they're going to be kind of cautious with how they're spending their money because they're trying to make this work. So I trust the team with what they do, but at any rate,
So
there
do
might
I.
be some episodes where we talk about, ooh, this is the new book they brought, like the old book they brought in. Like, why did they do this? Why did they make this? Why did they not change anything like they did in the past? And then complain about that. And then whenever Event 30 comes out, we'll be like, ooh, finally we got some new content and be upset about them doing something stupid. But, it's neither here or there. I'm basically rambling on because to get to the main topic of discussion. So, right now we have event, not event. I mean, we thought we were going to have event 30, but unfortunately we did not. Instead, we had a a New Year's New Gears type of thing, a limited time quest line, which is entitled Elf Attack or Elves Attack.
You know, there's one thing I probably wanted to point out. If it was an Event 30, that would have been like the best way to cap off the entire year.
Exactly, and they
Yeah,
don't even have to make it a
it's like a
big
missed
event. Like they
opportunity.
can do a little tiny event. Like well, that's fine. Like whatever. Like like a little. They could make it work. I mean, I like how they design certain things, but before we discuss and kind of give the goods and the bads, I just want to go ahead and say I think I speak for both of us when I say I quote a a certain reviewer. What were they thinking with the way they designed these update? Like, my God, they went back with what they did last year with the whole request thing. But not only that, but they did it in a way that's like, well, if you played, like, I made a rant about this, a rant about this before, but regardless, it's like, what's that? You started the event late? Well, too bad. Sorry, can't play unless you buy our bundles. Screw you. But yeah,
I mean, of course, there are alternative ways of getting these items, of course.
yeah, and I get it. They need to make money. I get the whole idea. Just they could have made it a little bit better. Like the event is not made, like those requests were not made specifically to have this be a thing. This is just not how it works. If they did it in the sense of like having a time cap with like you can't do number two until a certain date, like like how to give you an example, Family Guy: The Quest for Stuff, or even how Magic, like Games Loft's Disney Magic Kingdoms, they kind of do their things where it's like at a certain point, it's
Yeah,
like, oh, welcome this character. And it's like, oh, you can't do that until this date happens, but you can still continue. Like even if that date passes, you still have it be able to do it until the official event ends. Like they could have done something like that and be like, okay, whatever. But no, this almost felt like a rushed thing. Like it's almost like they kind of planned something, but then they kind of didn't, like something to hold us off almost.
yeah, because I theorized that this is only I like to call this the Scott Cawthon gamble. So, what I mean by the Scott Cawthon gamble is that before a new release of a main series FNAF game, right? Scott Cawthon has this paranoid feeling that people would either, turn away from the series or get irritated that the game's not being released soon enough. So he releases a little mini game in order to distract people, in order for him to, get people anticipated for the new mainstream or the new mainline game. He did that with Fury's Rage. I know he did that with another game prior to that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I feel like Pixowl is attempting the Scott Cawthon gamble, as I officially call
Yeah, I feel like that. Apologies on
it.
that. I just wanted to I had a panic attack there. I was just like, "Oh God, we're recording this and I don't think I was recording it properly." But no, we are doing it properly. So, thank
Okay,
God.
that's good.
The worst part. That's why I wanted to stop it as soon as I can, because the last thing I want to do is record an hour-long length video and then only hearing our dear friend, Vampire, and then it's just like, oh no, where's Graham? Where's Graham? Why is he quiet? And yeah, that's me and technology. It's not. It hasn't been the first time that happened, but anyways, where were we? We were talking about elves. Yeah, you mentioned about the Scott Cawthon thing, right?
Yeah, Scott Cawthon gamble, as I call it.
Yeah, so
So
like I
yeah,
get
I
that
feel like
idea.
yeah, I feel like they are adapting the Scott Cawthon gamble to this event, so that way, because if because I know you've been keeping track about how long it took for like the Circus of Fear to be officially released.
Part
So
of
I
yeah,
feel like
I feel like the reason why it took so long was due to the fact that they were doing a new event style in the game coding that their other games have done, and it's just like, well, they have a small team, so you can only do so much. So that's my theory on it.
because of that small team, it means that yeah, because of that small team, that means that they're going to have to put a whole lot of hands on deck to create this new and extravagant event for everyone to enjoy, which is why they released this Elves Attack thing. That's just my game theory. A
Yeah,
game theory.
I, f- I
But
f- yeah, and I feel like
anywho,
the reason they took so long was so way when it comes to like future stuff, they're like, okay, they will be easy. We can just import stuff and just kind of copy paste and just kind of change the background. They'll be like, done. We're all done. We don't need to do anymore. It's just the art team's department now. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see exactly what happens in January. But the one thing I'm gonna say about this is that why it kind of ticked me off was it shows the creativity of the certain director of this program, because He started, I think, since last year with the Return to Horrorland. And I've started to notice the way he kind of does things. He kind of been adapting books as they are, but also adds some things to them. And he kind of adds these, like, if there's an error in the book or there's some sort of like Easter egg or something like that, he tends to add that into the book some way, which is interesting.
Right.
Like what happened with the Circus of Fear with Barbarous, like calling it Barbara, because RL had a stroke at some point and forgot that he named the character Barbarous, not Barbara.
Well, the thing about like the way that they've been doing it, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, you know? Like, yeah, you get like a more accurate retelling of the original book, but at the same time, you end up with certain problems that probably shouldn't be addressed, you know? Like,
Yeah,
for
I know,
example,
like what
Brock.
happened with the events that shall not be named.
Well, I'm
Oh
gonna
God,
I'm
let's
right
not,
moving.
like, we're probably going to be talking about that at some point, so let's not discuss that now. We can have our grievances as soon as they brought that back as as a special book, because you know that's going to come up
Oh,
at
I
some
can't
point.
wait for that.
Oh
I
God,
can't wait
people
for that.
already saw my anger with that one, so yeah, let's not delve into that. But what, yeah, the other
Yes.
thing that's interesting too is that with this game, I've noticed when there's certain directors in charge of this game, you can see different aspects, and like there's been like it's not been too many cooks, but there's been like a cook coming in, and then another cook comes in, and this kind of adds to the pot, and he adds his different things, so he doesn't add to like the other guy. So then all of a sudden just starts this weird snowball effect. But
I love how you just randomly added too many cooks into that.
yeah, no, I
Like I just
mean,
remembered the Adult Swim part of
yes, yes,
the
we
too
all
many
know, but
cooks.
it before that became an Adult Swim thing, it was a it was a saying or a phrase, as it were, to explain
Right.
something. But the gist of it is that it's interesting to see different directors having their different styles. Like the one who was directing back in 2020, he had this huge, like he made these big updates, and he had so much creativity. But the downside of it is that sometimes it got too creative, where it's like, where's the book? It's just a name only. Not a bad thing,
Oh,
by
are
the
you
way,
talking
but
about like
sometimes it's like, where is Poison Lake? I don't know. Oh, it's a little pond thing. Okay, well, all right. Where's the lake monster? Oh, let's just throw in the mud monster in there. Boom, lake monster. Yeah,
yeah, you
but
want to talk about recolors? Let's talk about Poison Swamp.
oh my God. Okay, let's not. Yeah, I know the turquoise mud monster. It's like that's why it's poisoned. But yeah. Um, the anyways, getting off topic. The the one interesting thing though with this current director is that you got to see his creativity. Now, this guy, he has a art station account. So he got to see his, like, I think his artwork. And so he's an artist himself. And I've started to see that some of the items that are coming in are a little bit more like you don't see references of this at all. So it feels like it's coming out of his mind. It's just like, okay, he draws a little sketch and he's like, do this. It feels like that way. Like the items, like the weird chocolate monsters, and even like this event with the whole like Christmas stuff from the past, from last year, or not last year, back in 2022.
Right.
In this case, I decided to take one of the items. And he's like, hey, these unshaven elves, why don't we make them into a thing? And why don't we go ahead and reference a horror movie of it, which is, in this case, Gremlins? Because, why not? Which, and this is the other thing
I mean,
too. Like, it's one thing to kind of make their own creative idea. It's another thing to make it creative, but also fit within the lore. Like, make it seem like, would this be something that RL would do? The answer is yes. This would be something you would see, like, the man make a story of. Like, what about mischievous elves? They're
well,
like
let's be fair.
monsters.
Like there was actually a Tales one of the Tales to Give You Goosebumps stories called Santa's Helpers, and it's basically like at first that's what I thought that the elves event was gearing towards,
No.
where like some kids were mistaken as like elves and they get kidnapped by Santa or something.
They made mention of that back in Attack of the Christmas Presents, though. I think that's what originally the Chris character was supposed to be based from. Although he's his own original
Yeah,
character, like, yeah, he's a Santa Claus, but he's not a particular Santa Claus. That's the thing too. They take characters that would fit and they kind of make their own thing, which I thought they were gonna do, but I guess because Harl didn't make any spooky Christmas books. I know we don't live in a day and age where um season greetings from Dead House, so that sadly is not a thing. But yeah, they ended up making their own thing while also referencing other horror aspects to it. And at some point, I do like what bugs me about it is that I love the idea, and the story was actually good as well. Like, you actually got to see that last year because we didn't have a whole lot of updates. I would assume that what he did was he also looked back at the everything as a whole, like the stories and whatnot that was in this game, and kind of made sure to keep it true to the lore. Like recently in this recent update, Sater mentions the fact that he has, in this case, Fluffy, which is the abominable snowman from Pasadena, as a pet, and
yeah.
I'm just like, okay, yeah. They never mentioned this. It's like they usually think it's a one-off, but they're like, no, no, this is a thing, and they're like, oh, okay, I can see where they're kind of tying this in to try to close it off. So it's like, oh, it's cute, you know. So it's nice that they don't forget some things. So it'll be
Unlike
curious.
certain characters like Jack.
Yeah, that's
Like, when's the last time you ever seen Jack do anything?
let's see. I think the only time I seen him do anything significant was probably back at Haunted Halloween.
I have never seen him do anything for Haunted Halloween, and I bought the special book.
Well, I mean, not in the special book, but when the event came out back in 2018, he had some dialogue and whatnot go. That's the other thing too I wanted to throw out there with the events as of recently is that they've also started to have characters kind of join into the event. Like, yes, they may not have animations, but at least they do like uh, work like tasks. So it's like you can pretend they're doing stuff. And it's not just like characters that you see, like, you have different randos in there that had nothing to do with it. I'm just like, oh, that's cute. Although it
Kind of like
seems like,
Crombie.
yeah, like Crosby and Fifi and things of that nature. Yeah, it's like stuff like that. And what I've noticed too is the animations seem to be kind of like more fluent and more interesting. And I think it's because the person who's doing the artwork for this game, I think, started way back in 22, and they've been doing the artwork since then. And you can tell because she has a interesting way of designing characters. Like when you look at Jillian and the recent Five Tongue Girl, she looks the same because it's like that familiar face, but it's a lot more cartoony, if that makes sense.
I was like, I know it was already touched upon in the Bride video, but I was not a big fan of Jillian's design.
Yeah, I know. Okay, we said we weren't going to talk about it, so let's not. That's its own future update. Don't worry. We most likely will be talking about it when they bring the special book of the Night of the Living Dummy and how horrible that handled. I warned them too. It's just God. Not now. Not now. Hold off. That's its own problems. I've already made jokes about it during my Valentine's of Poison Lake update, revisited
Yeah.
stuff. So I had fun with that, especially the fourth wall break. But you know, neither here or there.
The Snake Sisters are also kind of like really bland. I wasn't a big fan of that.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on this particular Elves Attack update? Like things you like and don't like. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're on the same boat, but I'm just curious.
I feel like it's not like the thing about the Elves Attack thing. It's like it's something to tie me over, so I don't really have too much gripe with it. But it kind of annoys me that involved with a specific holiday that's basically centered around them, and it's kind of like their whole personality aren't featured in it. Like
And it sucks
like
too that
everyone
there's no
knows where I'm
snow.
going.
It's like, oh, but there's snow on
Well, I
the
mean,
items, and I'm just like, nah, I want snow. I've been spoiled 2 years with snow on the ground. Okay, you said it was going to make it work. They didn't
like
even
everyone
bother with
knows
the
what it is.
promenade. Like, come on, you couldn't even get rid of the old stuff and just kind of throw in some Christmas decorations and be like, done. Like, at least that's why I said this update was half baked. Like, there was ideas there, like the story and all that. Like, I'm glad we had a story, so it's not nothing. And the items were festive enough. Like, they're cute in a sense. Like, you got their version of Christmas tree this year, which is like the elves in the kind of a nod to like Gremlins again, and then it's a little bit more of a Zeusy tree because of the way the top ends up kind of curling down.
It just kind of reminds me of the Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess a lot of people say Zeusy tree because the is known for like these weird curly, like weird um what's the word? They're like not normal shape. They're like weird shape.
Abnormal.
Yeah, like that. So a lot of people looking at go like, ah, Zeus. But I'm like, okay, I can see that. But yeah, it's interesting. And then I'm glad they also add animations to it too. Like God, what is it with this game? Like, a lot of people are like, oh, you can't swear because it's a kids game. It's like, well, look at this. God, fix the goddamn car. It's like, okay, I get it's a reference from the movie, but come on, really? It's the dams all over again.
Yeah. Like I have like this tendency to mostly curse while I talk because I'm kind of like if anyone is familiar with like Trailer Park Boys and you've seen the scene where Ricky is in like court and he's trying to like defend himself for like I guess a robbery that went awry. He's like trying to give his testimony but he couldn't because he knows he couldn't swear and then he just like complains to the judge like, "Hey, you know what? I need to swear while I talk because this is driving me nuts." And the judge is just like, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, I got it. And sadly, I got some people listening to this and thinking, what are we talking about Trailer Park Boys? Just yeah, the best description, right? I usually throw out some stuff there too. So, you know, live with it. Whatever.
You're not exactly all too innocent either. So
Yeah, I know. I'm not. God, you hear me attacking again. God. Yeah, yeah. You're enjoying this. I'm being picked on. uh, anyways,
kind
so
of reminds me of like kind of reminds me because my friends and I when we were in like a group call, one of my friends would always say, "I'm being bullied." This like one of my other friends is bullying me, and like it's not like actual bullying; it's just like
no, I
joking,
know, but I
teasing.
feel like I'm being picked on. It's like, oh, look at this guy.
Yeah,
He can't
it just
speak
reminds me of that.
properly. Let's point and laugh at him. It's like, leave me alone,
Well, I
okay?
have problems talking too, so you're
You
not
know
the
what's
only one.
even bad? You know what's worse about my like? I was worse way younger. Like I had a speech impediment, and I had a hard time speaking, and it was so bad that I had there's like these counselors that kind of help kids who are uh, special. Let's put it that way. And
Yeah.
I was talking to them, and he's just like, "Oh, is English your second language?" And I'm like, "Wow, okay, nice, nice thing to say to somebody."
Is English your second language? It's
No,
like,
and
no.
it's like, wow, okay, Eh, God, but
Like,
yeah,
I
but I
mean,
can understand what he meant by that. Sometimes I think the problem is that sometimes I slur my words, like what I just did just there as an example. I guess because I'm so used to talking fast, so when I do, sometimes my my mouth talks before my brain goes, so it's like they're not in sync with one another.
right. It's kind of like with me and typing.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, enough talking about ourselves. Let's talk about this game. So I think there's not a whole lot to
I
talk
mean,
about when it comes
technically,
to
this
this.
is an introduction podcast, so
I
it
guess,
wouldn't
yeah,
be out
fine,
of the
yeah. This
ordinary to do
podcast is whatever it is. What I don't know what it is. It's an interesting listen to listen to these two talk about some mobile game. whatever. It
And
makes it
then meanwhile
interesting.
they're talking about stuttering and Trailer Park Boys and all this stuff.
And Mickey Mouse and like Pooh Bear, like what the hell is this? Right. And so yeah, I mean that's why it makes it fun. That's why it's better to have somebody on here as a podcast host because it makes it somewhat interesting to talk about it. Because if it's just me, I try to do it by myself. It doesn't work out that well. You hear me enough on
Yeah.
these videos, so you know. But regardless of
It's
that,
good to have a refreshing. It's good to have a refreshing point of view.
yeah, it's like what were the two well-known critics, Albert and God, what are their names? They're the guys who do the thumbs up, thumb down type of thing.
I feel like I know who you're talking about, but
Yeah,
I
you
just
know who
can't
I'm
remember
talking
their
about. I
names.
can't for the life of
Yeah,
me remember their names, but I know it's like I want to say Albert and like the other guy starts on the E.
yeah. I know exactly who you're talking about. I just can't pinpoint the name either.
Yeah, they're very famous back in the 80s and 90s, and I think yeah, it was around that time because around 2000s the first guy ended up dying from I think brain cancer, and then the other guy lived until I think 2015 because at some point he ended up having to go into retirement because he had some sort of throat um what was it? He was suffering with something and he ended up losing his voice, but he was still able to type like make reviews via the computer. So he was able to still do that, but yeah, it wasn't the same. But yeah,
Oh,
what I
you're
was
talking
going
about.
off from there is the
Oh,
fact. What?
it's Robert and Ebert.
There we go. That's who we were talking about. But yeah, that you're
Yeah,
like yeah,
I
you're
had
my
to
Robert
Google
and
it.
I'm your Ebert. It's the same thing, or vice versa. We need two opposites sometimes. Like, yeah, they might
That
have
depends.
some similarities, but it's good to have like what I've learned with any podcast is like sometimes it's also best to have someone that you disagree with because it makes it more interesting to listen into. So you bullying me
Right.
is it helps as much as
Yeah, that way it doesn't like turn out to be like an echo chamber of sorts.
exactly. You want someone that says, "No, you're wrong, Grim. I like this episode. I like this show. I like this not this episode. God, my brain, stop brain,
I
man.
like this event, goddammit.
This update, yes, this update. I like this update. You're wrong. Screw you. Yeah,
I made a long, comprehensive list of why you're wrong, and I'm gonna go alphabetically.
exactly. Uh, yeah. So, anyways, I don't think there's really much else to talk about with this current update that was just kind of hit because we've kind of went through the basics of it. Though I will say one thing though, I do like the little dialogue they had with the little gremlin elves thing there, especially when it came to like making fun of Mrs. Dark. It's like, come on, that's like such
I like
childish humor.
I like what
Merry
I like
Christmas,
the
Mrs.
dialogue with like
Parks.
Dustin. He's like trying to sell like Christmas tree. I like when Dustin was like trying to sell Christmas trees to like Koru and like
Oh yeah, then you
Fluffy,
got the
and he's just
abominable
like
snow
getting
monkey, and I'm
real.
just like,
He's like slowly starting to lose his patience with them.
and at
And
first
then
I'm
when he
like, why
meets
is the
Fluffy
snow
again,
monkey
it's
there?
just
And
like,
I'm
oh,
just
it's
like,
you
yeah, and it's like, why is the abominable snow monkey there? And I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, because he's fluffy, he's his pet. Why not? But yeah, it's fun. You know what it is? He got influenced by Susie that one time, so now he's like, yeah, for Christmas, sure, buy a Christmas tree from my Egyptian tomb, whatever. I'm cursed to say one word, and that's my sister's name and myself. That's it.
again. Yeah, he only just basically says Neil on
Except for that,
and Groot quite a
except
lot.
except for that one weird time where he didn't.
Yeah.
I had recording of that. I think it was. I'm not. I don't want to say. Yeah. So I think it was the Beast Beneath the Sink because there was this
Uh,
one weird thing where it's like, no, I have Dustin in my lair, and I'm just like, why are you talking? And I don't know. Like I love how when they introduced the Shaggy into the game, he was acting like a monster. But then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, no, he talks English now. To be fair, though, if you're looking at the lore of the book, technically speaking, he's like two twin kids or something like that. So, like, okay, sure, he can talk English. Why not? So there's that.
I think one of the better dialogues or one of the better interactions was between like Dustin and like Saber.
Oh yeah, when he thought he was like he was so they I
It
swear,
was
like if it has to be so stupid. Like, it's like Clark Kent. Like, as soon as the glasses come off, it's like, where'd he go?
yeah, it's like, oh shit, Superman.
Yeah,
But like
exactly.
I really like how like Saber just wears like this white mask just to pretend to be like another camper, and Dustin just like sees this big hulking furry thing with like a white mask. Is like, hey,
You're a
that
weird
looks like a
kid. I
camper.
like you. Yeah, we can be friends.
yeah,
You might talk weird, but hey, you're okay. And then Lucy's
yeah,
just like, he's wearing the mask because he had like a burn thing. It's like, oh, yeah, shit. Sorry, man. I forgot to know that. It's like, no, I'm not wearing the mask because I got burned because I'm a monster. Oh, well, that's okay. Wait, what?
yeah. It pulls it pulls like a Chris Griffin thing. Like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. Ooh.
Yeah. Uh, that's the one thing I love about this game is just like the die. See, that's the other thing too. Why I like the dialogue, and I'm glad I started voicing the characters because it makes it kind of feel like it's not just me doing the voices. It's like, oh yeah, I can imagine that these characters have different voices. It helps.
And the voices that like people can come up with for like these characters is just I just like the okay, so one thing I did wanted to mention was George from Trapped in the Circus.
Oh, yeah, my George.
Because well, here's the
Oh
thing.
god. Yeah,
It's
no.
just
Blame
I do appreciate your
blame
interpretation of having
Erasmo
like
for
the
that
small
one. He's
characters
just like,
sound like big and burly and having like the big burly characters sound like insignificant and tiny. But like the thing about George was that I inspired his whole design off of a obscure villain, quote unquote villain, from like a cartoon called The Tick, right?
yeah, of
And this
course.
character was Proto Clown.
Yeah,
And Proto Clown and what I was expecting George to sound like was basically like someone of very simplistic mentality that he can't even create coherent sentences properly. Like he would always say something like "George smash" or something like that. You know.
but instead you got Elmo. Surprise!
I,
But blame Erasmo for
I
that
was
one
I
because
was
I was
expecting
trying
that.
to think, what should George sound like? By the way, I called him Georg because of this pronunciation, but yeah, like I was like, what should George sound like? And he's like, well, you had Peepers have deep. Why don't you do the opposite for him? I'm just like, oh God, he gave me the idea. I'm like, oh God, that's perfect. Get the
Yeah,
joke
speaking
about.
of papers, like I have this like okay, so I was talking to like I showcased my artwork to like another Discord group with a couple of friends, right?
Yeah,
And one of my buddies looks at the original artwork for like the horror town depiction of like Mr. Peppers, right?
yeah.
And they say it's like I really don't like how Mr. Peppers looks like Bobby Hill. I look at the picture, I'm like, oh my god, he is Bobby Hill.
It's a face. It's really what it is. It's the body's face. It's just because he looks like he's just like one big blob. Like there's no neck. It's just like a body.
No, every time I look at like Mr. Peppers, I just keep thinking of let go of
Okay,
my
David.
purse. I don't know you.
Yeah, that boy ain't right. That clown
that
ain't right. He sleeps on the floor.
boy ain't right. I
Yeah,
tell you what.
I know. Good guy peepers though.
Well, in the original book, Peppers was actually supposed to be to help the kids escape. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
it
yeah, see,
shows.
so this is what I'm talking about. He reads his source material. He's just like, I gotta make sure he's the good guy, and
There's like someone
he
here
adds
wants to be.
NPCs. It's like I can only add one character, but that doesn't mean I can't add NPCs. So he just keeps on adding
Yeah,
NPCs.
NPCs is where you can kind of like cheat on that a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, screw it. It's better than just having the one character to deal with. It's like at least they add some things in there, so it's like this character's not talking to one person. That's it. They have different things to go off of. And
And I
sometimes
kind of hoping that because of the NPC thing, that they would actually release like walkable characters later on down the line.
that's what one of the things we were talking about with Rasmo was just like, it would be cool if we had monster NPCs, like, just like human characters, but they're actually monsters and to be able to scare, like, they're just basically farm characters, so you get to scare them, right? Like, can you imagine horror, like actual horrors walking around like normal, but they're like town
Well,
people,
I
but
was
you get
thinking like
scared?
NPCs. I was thinking of like NPCs, something similar to like uh oh, did I
Or you
really
want to
forget
make
his
it
name?
easier on themselves. Why not just like recolor the people, make them look dead, and be like, oh, boom, zombies. Sure, zombie monster
Oh,
characters. They live in
I was thinking of
crypts.
like I was thinking of NPCs like Jimmy O. James.
Yeah, I mean, I guess eventually, like, I'm trying to think if there ever was a time when an NPC that be actually, yeah, there were. I mean, kinda. I mean, you had like, Will Blake was mentioned as well as Carly Beth as NPCs before they became actual characters, right? So
Yeah.
technically they
So I was
could.
kind of like expecting that, more NPCs from like past events would eventually, make it to uh like little bundles or what have you
I
in
mean,
order to have them walk around and stuff, like Jimmy O. James
yeah.
or
I mean, eventually Jimmy Old James will probably be added into the game if they ever do Slappy's Nightmare because he's a prominent character in that book. So that's probably the
well, it
best
was
time to
actually
add him there.
also yeah, I also had this one idea where like there was like a Night of the Living Dummy 3 type event where Jimmy O. James was just carrying around Rocky, something similar to like the ventriloquist from Batman.
The Scarface one, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I guess.
Arnold West.
Yeah, sorry, I was interrupting you. I might as well, you know what? Let's just do it because we're done with the other topic. Let's go on to the next one. Future
Sure.
events, our wish list for 2024. Hoping that we actually have not just two stupid events, that we actually have at least six is my hope. But five. I'll take five. Anything but not one. But
Yeah,
yeah,
anything than that.
yeah. So
There's actually some lists
yeah,
that I
that's.
found on Facebook. I don't know if I forgot who made the list,
I
but
think I know. Is this
yeah,
just Jacobs? I think his name was.
yeah. Now that you say it, yeah, it's exactly that person.
I think that's what he goes by. But you know who you're. Why? Hello, I mentioned you. Oh my God, my name is got mentioned. Oh boy, feel special. But yeah,
Then
he made a list of like things that we want, and these are like names of things that you would expect to be added in eventually. Like some of the ideas, like the thing with this game is that there are some books that are like, okay, I can totally see this being its own event, and like have the one character and the monster, and like everything's just kind of like laid out in front of you, like easy peasy, like camp, ghost camp. Perfect. Not
yeah,
Ghost Camp. Like, oh yeah, Ghost. I don't know what their obsession with Ghost Camp, but they keep on popping that in. I'm just like, okay, but Ghost Beach. What I meant to say, like that.
yeah.
That's obvious. Like you can totally see what they can do for that. But then there's some updates where it's just like, well, the monster's cool, but the book has nothing to do with it, or the book has some cool things, but they don't have a cool character, so they kind of do this weird merged thing where, for example, like they had Conrad be a part of the Abominable Snowman from Pasadena, and then later on they add him to Beware the Snowman, but they had Conrad's dog Wolfbane in there. So
Yeah.
I haven't seen that happen yet. They might. I mean, they know
But
they
I
must have
don't really
looked in
know
the
if I would.
past. So
I don't know if I really count those as like events per se, since they are like mainline stories.
okay, prime. Okay, good example. R.B. Faraday when it came to Shocker on Sock Street, he has nothing to do with that original book, but because it's like horror director.
Right, because he was in Fright Camp instead of Shocker.
Yeah, and we had a character named Professor Shock who does like animatronics, so why not have him be like the guy from the book?
And also with like Susie Snowflake and the 12 Screams.
That was clever for what they did. That I'm glad they had her in the
Yeah,
game. I keep
yeah.
on saying it, but they did a good job
And
with her. In that she totally would act like that's the beauty of it is that I'm loving the fact that some people look at her and be like, my God, this is like that's the thing too, right? It's like I saw somebody make a comment where they're like, "I wonder what Curly sisters look like because I never like they mention them, but they never really have any description of them." And then this game
I
update
think
came out
the
with
only
Trick or Trap,
like
and they're like, "Oh my God, they're there, and they look as great as I thought they would be, like even better." And I'm just like, it's one of those things where they kind of add to the actual description of it, and it actually fits well, right?
yeah. One of the things that I did wanted to point out in terms of like Trick or Trap was the the fact that, as far as I can recall, the only sister that was mentioned was Nightshade.
Yeah, I mean, well. According to the Goosebumps wiki, they say otherwise.
Well, I haven't checked out the Goosebumps wiki in terms of like Curly Sisters, but getting back to the
Well,
list here,
they're official now.
the one, well, yeah, the one thing that kind of throws me off a little is the beware of the purple peanut butter, because I know it has like I know it's not really like a whole
They
uh
already the problem is they already mentioned it. Like it's a craftable item in the Monster Blood thing. It makes
yeah,
sense. Like Monster Blood makes you grow, that peanut butter makes you shrink. There you go. Grow,
yeah,
shrink.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of feel like, as much as an idea it would
I
be
love,
for
but
something like this, I feel like it might be a little bit redundant, because then you would have to center the whole thing around, just the
little
purple
ant-sized
peanut butter.
people, like that's ridiculous. Yeah, they can't really do small. Big, yeah,
Unless,
but small, not so
unless,
much. That's a weird thing too. I love the this is talking about like the side tangent of Monster Blood, but when they had giant Evan a rock walking around as a monster, like it makes sense because it's based off of the third book. But I love R.L. Stein's description. It's like, well, we can't have a naked kid. Oh, I know. The Monster Blood spilled on my shirt, so it grew with me. I'm like, oh, so that's how it works now. Just touching it just makes it grow. Okay,
well,
sure,
no, I
why
would say it
not?
has like a Alice in Wonderland effect to it.
I get
But
it.
I,
I love listening to
but
Goosebumps, and they're like when they get to that story, it's like, can you imagine? Thank God.
but I do feel like a good sequel or something along that line to help tie in with Beware of the Purple Peanut Butter would be something like Night of the Giant Everything, or even so much as like Awesome Ants, where both Monster Blood and Purple Peanut Butter can play a role.
That would be creative too, because you got to bring back the Monster Blood, bring back our good shady businessman, Compton
Compton
Dawes.
Dawes.
Compton
Yeah,
Dawes,
these two.
I love
Compton
that.
Dawes.
Yeah, the you could bring him back, but what's interesting too is that the items you can totally see as being giant like versions of like things like you would see like giant flowers or having the monsters be giant bugs, which technically speaking we have like awesome ants and like go eat worms, so you have giant insects, so they do exist in the lore.
Well, the thing about Go Eat Worms is that that's a whole different situation. There's already an existing giant worm to begin with. With Awesome
Yeah,
Ants, however,
that's the
it's
weird
just basically you fed them the wrong food and they grow,
That's the weird thing, though. It's
which
like,
ties in
how do
with
they eat? Like, they don't got no mouth, as far as I know. But the weird thing about it too is that what is with their
wait, are you telling me ants
obsession?
don't have mouths?
Yes, I'm assuming they have something. I've learned how they reproduce, which is weird. It's just it's a weird. Don't look it
Ants
up.
have mouths? What are you talking about? How,
God.
how would they eat otherwise?
Yeah, the weird thing about it too. I don't know what is with their obsession, but it seems like as of late, the Go Eat Worms gets make a lot of love. We got to see in the show version, which, by the way, I think out of all the other books they added, I think they handled that one really well as far as the scare factor, as like a concept of like how can you make worms scary, and the concept of eating them. Well, I know, so give them that. But then also the Goosebumps, the game board from Spin Master. They have one of the monsters be that of Go Eat Worms, which is like it's an interesting mechanic. Like I give him that, but it's like it's weird that out of all the books you could pick, you're like, ah, go eat worms. Yes, perfect. Let's do that.
I feel like they're trying to take like I feel like Spin Master's idea was to take certain aspects from the TV series for the new TV series and then putting them into the board game because other than Slappy, you notice
Well, then also like the how
that
they
were
like
picked for the
how
game.
the girl who cried monster that they weren't in the books at all, but or in the show, but
Well, granted, but I'm talking about like Haunted Mask, the Cuckoo Clock of Doom, Go Eat Worms, the Say Cheese and Die.
that's what I'm thinking. But it's like it's so weird that they picked that out of everything, and then they also mentions like, oh, it could have been monster blood on the side there, but whatever. We don't even know what that green goop was on the table. But side tangents. That since we're talking about it too with the board game, I pointed this out to you, and I actually posted it on the Reddit of the game, but I think they plagiarized the Goosebumps game. I think. I don't know if they plagiarized
I
it, but
feel like
they heavily were like they must have gotten like, well, we need some landmarks, and they're like, like how do I put landmarks in there? And they search up Goosebumps like towns or building things, and they're like, oh, there's this game. Let's just copy paste it. Like, come on. Like, you look at the game board and you look at the items and the buildings and whatnot, and you cannot just not look at it and go, wow, this looks like from this game board here.
they did have to talk with Pixowl to get
Yeah, again, I don't know the
because
legal.
if not, then
Yeah, I don't know the
it would
legality.
be like a big legal battle of who technically owns all this stuff. Because
Yeah,
even though Spin Master made assets for the board game, Goosebumps HorrorTown made assets for their game,
yeah,
and the
that's
whole property itself technically belongs
owned
to
by
Sony.
Scholastics. Yeah, although technically, also now the ownership is that of Sony Interactive. They're the ones who deal with the whole
Yeah,
brand of Goosebumps as far as licensing goes.
yeah.
So that's an
So I
interesting
do feel
fact.
like Spin Master does have some kind of permissions, but
Yeah, I'm only
I don't
kind of
think they
joking about.
straight up stole them.
Yeah, I was kind of only joking about this too because technically speaking, thinking about it, this wouldn't be the first or last time we've seen something official being plagiarized on public. Like we've seen like it happened with FNAF, but with I think it was Help Wanted had an incident like this happened. But I think also I think the book Beware like there was a Goosebumps book that was released I think back in 2022 which had like all the artwork from Jim Jacobus kind of focused on as well as some other stuff. But someone pointed out in the
Oh
back,
yeah,
it's
it
like
came
I
from New Jersey.
yeah, like, that type of stuff. But someone pointed out in the back of the book, they're like, hey, this whole like collage of Goosebumps stuff, I think they stole that from the Wikipedia page because the way the books are looking is like very telling from where we got the source from. So it's like, God, really? You couldn't have gotten the source yourself. You just had to look online and just kind of grab it from. And that's the thing. The internet just looks at something and they know immediately where it came from. So, it's just that,
Well, we got some super sleuths hiding around in the internet, so
yeah,
you can't
exactly.
hide anything from there.
Because we have autistic people are very, like brilliant people. So, you have a lot of them
You hear that,
online.
people on the internet? Apparently, you're all autistic.
No, I'm not saying it like that. I just mean in the sense that when you have somebody who's very like particular in that type. I mean, like look what happened when it came to the "He will not divide us" thing. Like that was really like God,
Okay,
the way they did this
okay,
stuff there.
that. Oh my God, the people. Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so the people who tracked down that flag had to go full
That
astronomical measurements and
that
everything. They had to
that's fully
pinpoint
autistic though.
stars.
Like you have to imagine that someone has to just know that stuff, and then even going as far as the honking the horn. Hopefully, like, oh, I hear the horn. It's close.
Well, they also followed like flight trajectory paths
And
for
then they
like
look
airplanes
online. It's like
too.
God, the amount of effort you guys are going for just to do this one stupid thing. It's like Like the internet is beautiful and horrifying at the same time.
Dedication, the dedication it takes to pull all that off, and like you would have like some random Joe wouldn't have like any idea about like astronomy with, but like it takes like I wouldn't say it takes an autistic brain to do that because that's kind of disingenuous.
Well,
Because,
no, but I mean
for
the other thing
example,
too, like I don't mean autistic as a like an insult. Like I'm somewhat
no,
autistic
no,
too.
I
I
wouldn't
think
say
I
that
suffer
either.
with Asperger's or something like that. I don't know, but
Yeah, I know.
it's insensitive because it's a
That was
spectrum. A lot of people who tend to be like particular with one subject, they kind of excel at that, right? It's like the best way to describe it is like a calculator. Like tell a calculator to spell, won't do it very well. Tell it to do math, can do that no problem, no thinking whatsoever. But
unless you tell it to spell boobies, then you're all golden.
that's what I mean. It's like sometimes that's why it has trouble. Like you can do some words, but not all of them. It tries
But
its best.
one example I was going to bring up was, for example, Chris Chan.
Don't mention that. We do a scary game, but that is a whole other beast. That is a whole other monstrosity. I know I've mentioned him once before, and like kind of like hints, hints, nudge, nudge, but he shall not be named because God, that character, man.
I love talking about Chris Chan because he is so unhinged. But
I love Liquid
however,
Quish though. He has such a great like making fun of him in his accents. It's like, Captain's log, start date. Eh.
yeah, this does not deserve a captain's log because this is dead
Serious
serious.
people.
I remember like
Magic,
I remember
magic making marker.
I remember
Permanently
like
put
I
it
was watching
in Brennan Suffolk.
I remember watching like a YouTube channel of like the when Chris Chan was like trying to tell people on YouTube to take everything off the internet about his house.
Yeah, and then his father comes in, like God rest his soul.
Yeah,
Shut
so
that darn
someone
thing off.
reposted that but dubbed it. Yeah, someone reposted it but dubbed it in like pirate voices.
I saw that. I recently saw that. That was hilarious. Get these parts
I
to like
want you
the
to tell
starboard out.
everyone in the
I'm
tower to take
crying.
everything off of the tower.
Yeah, God. See, folks, don't you love the fact that these two people are talking about the Goosebumps HorrorTown game and not any other topics? No, sirree, Bob. See, this is why it's just so random, right? This is why it's called TerrorVision,
Yeah,
because it's terrifying that they don't get to the subject matters. But no, this is gonna be it's gonna be whatever, right? It's a whatever podcast. We have a topic, but it
yeah.
can go whatever way. But anyways,
It
let's
would
try
it
to
would mostly talk about like Pixowl.
yeah, but then it leads
It'll
on to
mostly
other
talk
things, and it's
about
all of a
Pixel, but
sudden we start.
occasionally,
Yeah, and then we lead off
yeah,
to the
occasionally we just veer off into like different subjects,
exactly. We just
like
kind of just
Christian.
ramble on. Yeah, the internet lore and
Yeah,
all that stuff. Like I try to pretend, but if you're watching this, then that's too bad. You know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah. Anyways, so trying to roll ourselves back to the main topic from
especially
going
when
from one
I'm old.
direction to back here. So the
Right, the events.
yeah, the wish
Yeah, the
list of
events.
what we would like to see. I think because of how long this has been going on, we'll try to talk about one thing we'd like to see from this, like kind of go into depth of that and see where that leads into.
Well,
One thing I will throw out
before we
there,
do,
one thing,
I
yeah, sorry, the one thing
well,
I'll throw out there is that something I would be interested to see is that I don't know, like when they got the license for doing this, they couldn't do Slappy World because that was still an ongoing series. But as of right now, it's officially ended last year. So I don't know if they're able to do that, but it'd be interesting to see if they end up picking a book. Because now I think they're on to House of Shivers, and I think that one is even less than how Slappy World was, because now it's like 2 books every year. That's all you get. One in March and one's in September. That's it.
like the one thing that I did wanted to bring up before you mentioned the Slappy World stuff was that there were two other events in this list that I feel were kind of redundant.
Yeah.
For example, one of them is the haunted car.
I remember that. Like, I want to tell you something. I talked to the guy who was doing, back in 2020, and he was doing New Gear's, like New Year, New Gear type of event, like with the cars and stuff like that. And I pointed out
Yeah,
to him, why not do a haunted car? Like, we technically have the haunted car as an item, but it didn't stop them from making items and turning into monster scenes or something like that, right? So I pointed out to
I
him,
guess
like,
that's true.
yeah, we have, like, there is a book about cars. And I'm like, ah, God, darn, damn. I wish I knew. It's like, yeah, you could have done that, but oh well, we got this, whatever this was.
I mean, technically that is true, considering that the haunted Halloween stuff did have like the Halloween decorations coming to life and causing havoc. So it wouldn't be out of the
That's
it wouldn't
that's
be
the
out of the realm of possibility for the haunted car to eventually do that too.
That's the one thing about that update that I actually give them credit for is being able to pull that off because that must have been hard at some point. Like that still is one of the best updates ever just because of the amount of content they throw out there. And that was partially just a shill for the movie that was coming out that year, which was like
Yeah.
it's a weird own thing because it's like what you went from Slappy wanting to get revenge on his papa, and then he's like, you know what? I want a mother now. I want to have a family. It's like,
Well, yeah, it's basically
okay.
Slappy wanting to get revenge on his dad. Now he wants revenge on another family. I mean,
I want to
honestly,
be your
like
family.
I can understand why the ratings for that movie were lower than the first one because it's just basically a repeat,
Well,
kind of,
that is
but
his
with like
own
a whole
original
new
thing. It's not
treatment.
like Jumanji the movie.
But another event here that I wanted to bring, well, but to get back on the haunted car bit, I feel like having that entirely as an event just seems kind of redundant, mainly because how do you man like how would you be able to pull that off exactly?
I'm sure they could
Like it
figure
would seem
something
like
out.
a
Like they're
very
creative
daunting
people. They'll
task.
figure something out.
It
They
would
read
seem
the
like a
book.
very daunting task.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
would just feel like a really daunting task to try and pull off.
unless you do something like I'm trying to think of his name now. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm back now. I'm trying to think exactly, but it was God, I'm trying to think of Rat Think, right? That guy who
Oh,
made
right.
that. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. There's an artist who
Yeah,
is known to do that. I'm like, you could have totally do something like that. I mean, we've seen them be creative and they're
the,
allowed to do whatever they want. So he's like, yeah, we have to license the books, but then we can do whatever we want. So it's like, okay, whatever. They brought Eric Appleby into the game, so like anything can happen.
yeah, but I mean, like to turn a whole event just purple peanut butter all over again.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, whatever.
Now,
The like,
one more. No, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I wanted to throw back to one of the things we mentioned about funny voices, and I'm just remembering like there is one if at some point this event will probably come into the game or this book, but if they ever do, I'm gonna be so looking forward to it, and that is the Horror Camp Jelly Jam. They gotta bring Buddy in there
No.
as a character.
Yes.
Hi, everybody, it's me, Buddy. Welcome to Camp
Heck,
Jelly Jam.
yes.
This be a super
Oh,
duper fun. I'll still
get your
work
husband
on the voice,
pink
but
on.
I thought Drunken with Goosebumps, and I'm like, oh god, that's perfect for his voice. I can imagine this guy just sound like
Yeah, like no one can actually pull that off a lot more better. Like
that.
not even like any showrunners that make the Goosebumps TV show to adapt it would be able to pull it off as well as like drinking with Goosebumps or
Yeah, I
Squidbillies
know. Just
or
and I can
Squidbilly.
imagine a big buff guy, like they did the comic version of it. They made him like a big buff guy, and it's just funny with the big smile on it, like crap eating grin on his face. This is perfect.
Nah, he needs to look like a really nerdy William Afton.
Oh God, you mean like in the book? Yeah, God, can you imagine if they do that? Like, I would be curious to see how they design them because I don't know if they do
But
the book or they do. Oh,
they
they
had
do
to
this
have
weird
him like
merge
with like
thing.
raised pants, raised trousers up to his like his nipples,
Oh God,
just like a book cover.
yeah, God. I mean, I don't
They
know
need to
what they're
do
gonna be doing, but yeah, God, I can only
that.
imagine. But anyways, I figure let's have you give out what book you would like to see as an update for, like, if you had a choice, what would it be exactly? Because I know what I want to have, and I think people know the meme, but let's hear from you. What would you want?
Well, I know it's not on this list or anything, but one I like. There are a few ideas don't have on this list
That's
because
always
I
for
didn't write
future
them.
episodes, by the way. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
But if I had to pick from this list in particular, I would have to say it would have to be Welcome to the Wicked Wax Museum because that was the
Oh,
first
yes.
event idea that I wanted to do.
Yes. That's a brilliant one, too, by the way. Just perfect. Like, again, the character design's there, and it's just like, you got so much to work with. Like, can you imagine one of the monsters is the Strangler? It's like SpongeBob all over again. It's like, oh, the Strangler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did have this concept idea that I wanted to make for Sybil Wicked, which is like a mix between her the front page or the front cover of the book.
The melting Morticia Adams look.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
would have
that's
like different shades of purple like attached to her skin, and she would have like melting flesh and wear like this elegantly gothic black gown going on.
yeah. And then you most likely will have
It would have
Dr.
been
Wicked be
so
a NPC character because of course he will be, if knowing this game.
yeah. I
But
probably have like wait, you said Doctor Wicked, right?
yeah, I think that's his name, right? Isn't it? Because it's not Mr. Wicked.
Oh, well, either way, I would probably have him something similar. Like if he was also like a wax creature, I had like this funny idea of having him look kind of vaguely similar to like Lumiere from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it depends on how he's described as a book, and they'll try to be as faithful to it. If not, then they'll just do whatever whatever they think of. Or if you ever design them, and I can give it to the guy, and he'd be like, "Okay, thank you." Just like what I did with the peepers and whatnot. But
Yeah,
one thing I love about that book was there's an ending in there that you're damned either way, where it's like this limousine. Either you don't go in there and they're like, haha, you loser, and they just drive off and you're just stuck there. And then the other one is basically you go in there and then you're stuck in the limousine. It's just like, well, I I love the those twists and like especially one of the things I love about those books is there's I think it's the first ever book that did this, but it's like, all right, let's go to the I think it's Carnival of Horrors. Like, do you want to go in or do you want to go
yeah.
home? It's like, oh, you go home. It's like, well, what's wrong with you, you big baby? Why did you buy this book? You know what you're getting yourself into, and you said no. Go back and read something else. You lose. And I'm like, well, why have that in there? It's like the
This book
joke at
isn't
the
for
end of the day.
sissies.
It's
Go
like,
home.
what if I say no? It's like, oh, you can't continue. It's like, well, then why give me the option? Why give me the option if you know that I can't continue? But yeah, no, I had fun.
We don't take kindly to sissies.
Yeah, what's wrong with you? You know what book you picked up.
Yeah,
Bring your
exactly.
common sense into this. Come on. It's not like jump into the book or anything like
But that
yeah.
there are like so many books in particular is that unlike regular Goosebumps books where it does take like a very serious like turn eventually, like or even sometimes a little bit of a terrifying route. With these are just like incredibly goofy. Like
Yeah.
for example, with the it came from the internet, right? The only way to cure yourself of the spider virus is by eating computer chips with salsa.
Or go have a bath or something stupid like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Oh
like
yeah,
what?
and you lose your memory because ha ha, it's a computer virus, get it? Yeah. I mean, oh god,
I think
that event itself, like that was one of those books is like the guy's like, I want to bring in the internet. I was like, okay, why? All right, fine. And then they decide to reference not only Dr. Frankenstein or Frightenstein or whatever his name is from Overwatch, but then it's like they also have the two characters from the Hackers movie. Like, okay,
you mean Junkenstein?
Junkenstein, there we go. That's what I was thinking of.
And,
Yeah,
yeah, because I know that Junkrat played as Junkenstein.
yeah. I had to point that out too. I love it too because we were kind of spitballing ideas with that. They were like, "Oh, it'd be cool, the Power Glove. Yeah, let's add the Power Glove in there." And I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, we already had the Power Glove in there." And it's like,
A scene in
so they're
Nightmare on
like,
Elm
"Oh,
Street.
just recolored it." There, hold on.
It just reminds me of like that scene. Yeah, it reminds me of the scene in one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies where like
Oh
Freddy
yeah, now
Krueger
I'm
was
playing
like
with
toying around with
power.
like, this one kid.
Yeah,
Yeah, now you're toying with. And then
no,
like when they kicked the controller off his hands, he was just like, "You forgot the Power Glove."
it's okay. We can talk about Nightmare on Elm Street. He apparently is in the game as the janitor of the
Oh
school.
yeah, that is true.
I love that. I love that. I love that, they got these real life monsters in the game. It's just like, oh yeah, my good old Chucky Brown is he gets a good word in it for you, and I'm just like clueless over the head unless I looked it up and I'm like, oh god, you're referencing Chucky. It's like, how would Chucky know? First of all, it's like, oh, he knows how to do a good scare. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sure he does. You could say that.
Like if we do end up getting like a camp theme for an event, if they do not make a Friday the 13th reference like Jason Voorhees, I am going to be majorly upset.
I'm so disappointed too that they the way they handled batteries included. It's like, they could have done so much with it, but nah, annihilated 3,000 robots. That's it. It's like you already had a robot
Eh,
book. Why do you need another one? Come on.
like
Couldn't have Nasty Caddy?
I
No.
feel
You
like
couldn't have the other things? No. You couldn't have like horror Toy Story? Screw it. Nah. We're robots.
we're doing. But yeah, I feel like instead of like the like I get like okay, so on the one hand, I do like the idea that they're trying to go with for batteries included,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, it seems very lackluster compared.
I think I lost
Like
you.
it has potential, but it needs to be executed a little bit more uh, properly. I guess the word I'm looking for is.
Yeah, I mean that they could have just expanded upon that with this update. Like, Christmas is about toys, so why not? But no, no,
And when
let's
the
do
hell are we
unshaven
gonna
elves.
see? And when the hell are we gonna see Cynthia again?
No, I mentioned that to him, so he's aware of such a thing. So maybe I gave him an idea what we could have done, but you know, we'll see what he ends up doing with
It's
that
been
or information or not. I gave him
it's
ideas and
almost
he
like
does
been
whatever he
3 years
wants.
now.
I told him, God, here we go again. I told him about the Jillian incident, but no, no, he went with whatever. So, all right.
It's been almost like
It's been,
still even alive anymore.
oh, God. This is going to be a fun
Is there ever been a time when
podcast.
Professor Shock just like sits in his like I can imagine like Professor Shock just sitting in his room reading a newspaper, and then all of a sudden something um like he's like sort of reminded of something, and he's like, I feel like I'm forgetting something, and then you cut to the toy factory where you see like a skeleton of like Cynthia in a
We're
cage.
going with the Dana Johnson type of thing there, where like we have an official kill from one of the weirdest characters out there, a guy who can't dye his mustache properly. I love
Yeah,
that
Doctor
Dr. Gray
Gray.
looks like that. And the reason why is he's described as having a what do you call it? A salt and pepper mustache, right? Which is supposed to be, oh, he has a
Yeah.
little gray in his mustache, right? But no, that came off with,
Yeah.
one black, one white. Perfect. It just adds to
We
his character now.
for
It's just like,
mustache.
yeah, he's such an oddball. Why
That's
not?
just
He's the type of guy who would do that. Oh, damn. I've lost the mustache color. It'll work just fine.
oh man, the bleach. I ran out of bleach. Oh well.
I love that too. Like I've seen people do memes, especially when he came in. It's like I'm gonna talk about aliens, and it's like meanwhile the aliens and Goosebumps, and it's just like the monkey meme when he's just looking and he's like trying to ignore the fact that like I'm yes yes aliens question mark yeah. Well, yeah, it seems like he at least knows the lore, at least the lore of the characters and whatnot. So hopefully, yeah, I love that. I'm making that into a meme now. Like I saw Markiplier play a game, and he was like, "Oh, the lore," and I'm just like, "Oh, that's perfect. I'm gonna keep it." I did that for I think it was what do you call it? The awful mobile port of God, I can't even remember the name of the game. It's that bad. God, I can't remember it now.
I mainly got mine from like Matt Patton, who was like obsessed with like
Oh yeah,
he always like
Mister.
put so much
Let's make
emphasis on it. It's like,
thousands of. Basically, he's like with him with FNAF is like me with the HorrorTown. It just makes videos about it. It's like as soon as I get little crumbs, it's like, oh, the lore's been added. Let's make an hour-long
yeah,
video talking about the many significance that it could be. You
I
know,
feel like Matt Patton. I feel like he can't make a video without inserting some sort of FNAF reference. I feel like
it seems.
it's
Yeah,
way
I
too
mean.
ingrained into his brain.
I mean, it made him popular, so I don't see why not. But the other thing too is it's weird that sometimes like they've been told where sometimes they would have an idea, and then as soon as Matt had make a video talking about something else, like you know what? No, that's a good idea. Let's do that instead. I think it was you know what it was? It was Bendy and the Ink Machine. That's what it was. They were talking
Oh yeah,
about there was a video talking about the controversy with that game series, and it talked about how they didn't have an idea originally until there was lores talking about it. And they're like, that's what we'll do. And I'm just like, what? No, but okay, but
I actually reminded my. Speaking of like bendy and controversy, I actually remember I made like a little small mini comic of like how Bendy has been getting like game awards and all that other. And meanwhile, Cuphead was getting like negative reviews from a bunch of people who said that the game itself was like based on racism and stuff.
Cuphead is too hard, man. You can't even get past the tutorial level. It's too hard. There's that pillar, man.
And then like and then I had like Bendy basically flip off Cuphead and said, "See you in chapter 5."
Yeah, and how well did that do for him? Not well. Anyways, yeah. So again, don't you love this podcast? This is gonna be fun, man. This is gonna be real fun. Anyways,
I already enjoyed it.
yeah. So I guess let's do mine, and then I think we should probably call it because I think we're kind of long enough. We've been tiring these people long enough, man. Although we'd be talking on long, like I wouldn't mind talking a bunch, but you know,
Yeah, right.
we have things to do, and I'm sure these fine people listening, have other things that they would like to do as well. But
Unless,
anyway,
unless they're like me and have nothing better to do. What?
I mean,
Then
yeah,
I
there's that, the
welcome them with open
procrastinators,
arms.
but and then whatever. Anyways, the one event I would love to see in this game that I'll never shut up about is the please don't feed the bears. Like, God, like, what is with me in that? It's like, you know what it is? I saw what they did with Susie, and I'm just like, I want to see what they do with the rip-off Care Bears. It's perfect.
Oh yeah,
Valentine's Day. Boom. Perfect event. But,
yeah.
yeah,
I feel like that would be a really good like Valentine's theme event.
not only that, but it's perfect because it's a short story, which is great for the short like things we got going on there. They can add to having fun, like they have Kira being the monster character that you can get, the Cuddle Bear
Yeah,
monsters, and you can do fun little kiddie rides, like like kind of like SpongeBob's what do you call it, Glove World. You could do something like that,
yeah.
why not? Have some fun with that. Because it's like the whole premise of the story is it's like I think it was one of the horror books, like Still More Tales to Give You Goosebumps. I think it was, or
Uh,
yeah, I don't know.
honestly,
It's
I
a
don't
bunch
know
of
which one
even
of those
more.
books.
I don't know. It's one of those Tales to Give You Goosebumps books. It was like a Halloween version of it, but I love it too because it's just like, oh, instead of going to this cool haunted house thing I wanted to go to because of my stupid sister, we have to go to this baby land. It's like, ugh.
Yeah.
And he's like,
It's like,
okay, you
oh,
get to go
baby,
on
hey,
one
well,
ride. You know, got these realistic bear costumes. Like, oh my god, I'm turning into one. And then it ends off with
yeah,
the kid eating the crackers. It's like, well, I guess I'm getting a cuddle bear. And it's like, okay, that's kind of actually no, that's not even grim. That best happy grim ending is the Cuckoo Clock of Doom. It's just like the little brat Tara ends up non-existing. It's just like, I'll save her eventually, maybe.
feel like I feel like in that event specifically, the drop item from the Cuddle Bear scene would have to be the crackers.
Yeah, or at least a craftable or something like that. Again, they can do some fun with it. Like they can have merch, like crappy merch and whatnot. Like they did that with Horrorland, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's like you can just make it like Horrorland, but more baby style. Why not? Have fun with it.
Yeah, more kiddish.
I mean, they did a good job with bringing the Circus of Fear into the game, so I'm sure they can do the same thing there. Like one of the items I loved was the uh the popcorn looking lights because I was able to kind of make it like a little
Oh,
lamppost.
the circus lights.
Yeah, the circus lights, the little tints in them
Yeah.
of that. I don't know why it looked like popcorn lamps, but
No, I totally get it. But yeah, that actually is a pretty cool one.
yeah, and the other thing too that I this is one of the reasons why I love getting the art assets from them is because there's little details that the artists do that you really don't get to pay attention to, but you get to appreciate. Like the fact that like when we saw the popcorn event currency, at first it's like
Yeah.
normal popcorn until you zoom in and you start to realize, oh wait, there's like little skulls on them. It's like, oh, aren't you cute? It's like what they did with the when I did
Well,
the Be Afraid book when they had those cards. They had actually decided to put the effort in putting words on them, like play this card and drink tea, and you win the game.
yeah.
Like
All you
no one would see this, but they decided to put the effort in there anyways. There's like little
God, I love
Easter
that
eggs.
card. But the speaking of the popcorn current, if you actually look closer, it's actually the cover art for Trapped in the Circus of Fear.
Yeah, that one is a kind of like that one's kind of view off like that one's there like I can see that, which is actually I guess that was an easy way to doing it. Like what would be a good event for that? It's like popcorn, why not? You get popcorn from circuses, sure, why not? Better
Another
than clown
interest,
noses.
another interest.
I love too that whole video was a joke about oh yes clowns and they had no clowns whatsoever besides the two NPCs and that's it. It was like why did I run that joke to the ground?
I know that another interesting detail that I liked actually reverts back to the Be Afraid event where they had like the pull, and you can see like an ingrained
Yeah,
image
the
of
the
like
slap
TV show
the
slappers.
TV Slappy, right? I love that Mr. Wood in the Jack in the Box is literally just TV Slappy. Like they're gonna be
Yeah,
bothered.
exactly. Like we get to see more of him. Like that's I really like that. That's really cool.
I love that too. It's just like, oh, it's Mr. Wood. It's like, no, it's just TV Slappy, Slappy and TV Slappy. It's like he looks
I think the
good enough.
like I think I think the one item in Circus of Fear that I liked and disliked at the same time was the George box.
Oh yeah, because it was animated too. That was great. Like that was the first. That
Well,
was the thing. Remember when they had like one thing that really irks me is that they had the campfire be animated, and then they just decided to get rid of it, and they never brought it back. And I'm just
yeah,
like, what? Why? Why? What was wrong with it? Because they end up fixing the problem with making animated actual items. So something must have fixed between there. Like they must have figured something out kind of like what they did with the whole kind of like combined two characters thing. But I think the problem of that was that, oh, well, now people are going to ask, well, how come I can't do Justin, putting clown nose on his face? Because it's saying it needs Mistress Barbarous, and I don't have her. Where do I get her? I click on it, and it takes me to the shop, and it doesn't have her. Like, what's going on? So they're like, you know what? Screw it. She just has it
yeah.
on her own. She can do clones now. Why not? We can make.
And then you realize like later on in the event that you have to actually unlock her.
Yeah,
Like at the
you
very
get double
with
double the
with the
Barbarous.
monster key.
Yeah, that was fun. By the
Oh,
speaking of, might as well talk about this since we've never did to be able to before we go off. I think, but the whole update was interesting how they handled it. Although one thing we saw was I had to read the book again, but what was with the shattered glass being the raw item? And you know, one of the things that is, if you've played their other games, that being Adams and the Snoopy now, one of the things they do is they have a raw item um, crafting building that drops you currency as well as the items you need in order to craft other items. And what they tend to do is that it's like one's good, but then they add more. And all of a sudden you have from one to like nine, 10 of these things. And sometimes the items work, like okay, you can have multiple of them that work, but then sometimes the items is good for having the one, and then you have a bunch of them, and it's just like, what am I gonna do with a bunch of these? So I will say
it, it's
they
kind of
they made it the mirrors work because you can work with them, right? You can make a little like like ooh mirror like like what I kind of did with my town. But my fear is that the next
yeah.
like in future updates they'll add an item to be like, oh, this is a cool item to drop a raw currency, and then you just like get multiple of them, and it's just like you can work with the one, but what am I gonna do with a bunch of these? Right? It's
I
just
mean, sometimes some require more of the raw item
yeah.
than just one.
Yeah. I do love how they designed Barbarous as she does in the book in a sense. Although the microphone, I had no idea. Like originally I thought the microphone was going to be like one of those old timey like, hand microphone type things, but no, it's an actual like ready to rumble type microphones, if you know what I'm talking about.
I will have to I will have to say, the HorrorTown or the official look of Barbarous is a lot better than my original one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that. Like sometimes they hit it and sometimes they miss, like with Jillian and the twins, the the
Sisters,
acrobat sisters or whatever they're supposed to be. But one of the interesting
sisters.
things, I think I wasn't the only one who pointed this out, but I don't know what they referenced. They must have referenced her from something. Someone, I don't know if it was you, but you mentioned that it looked like somebody. But another person she looks like is that of Lady, God, what is her name?
Lady Demetrius.
There we go. Yes, she has a very non-English name. Yeah, so she looks like that, mostly just
I
because of
guess
the hat.
sultry look
It's the
and the
hat
fact.
and the face. I think that's why.
Well, yeah, it's one of those. But Lady Demetrius and Barbarous both have like a very seductive appeal to them.
Yeah, I know. That's the one thing about it that seems kind of raw. I mean, that's the other thing too. Someone pointed out was just like, well, it could have ended it worse. It's just like, you know what? This wasn't working out. You two are not working out as clowns at Patero. It's like, oh, you're letting us go? It's like, nah, I'm gonna eat ya. See you at dinner. It's like, well, yeah,
Yeah,
I guess you
I'm
technically did
kind of
eat me.
sad that they didn't bring out the whole cannibal thing into that event. Like that would have been really funny.
Not too no PG friendly, unfortunately. They couldn't go. No, we're going off with
Oh
the
no,
cannibals. We can't do that.
oh no, totally okay with Bride of the Living Dummy, but cannibalism, ooh, that's where we
That's
draw
way
the
too far.
line.
We're
Yeah, no
okay with
kidding.
nickel and diming our customers, but cannibalism, that's where we draw the line. Yeah. No, but they did an interesting idea with her, especially with the one thing like okay, there's a lot of things I love about this, but the one thing that surprised me was they said, okay, we have 8 quest lines, and I'm like, okay. Then you unlock her, and immediately it's like, wait, she has her own quest lines? Oh my God! And then she ends up continuing off from the story, so it's like it's an epilogue almost, and I'm like, that's beautiful. I love that. I'd love to see that added into the game's content lore. And not only that, but the grand prize, like they've done this, like I made fun of this, but the fact that you had the 3 bundle thing, because yes, that ends up they're every game company has their way of making money, and for Pixowl, it's bundles, bundles everywhere. They love their bundles, but with the bundle pack thing, where they're like, buy these 3 and you get this free item, quote unquote. It's like not free. You need to buy money first. But it's an optional. You
Well,
don't need it.
it's like I feel like it's one of those buy 2 get 1 free.
Yeah, it's like you don't need the item, but it's one of those. It's cool to have. It's a little part of the
Yeah.
event. Like you get the monster scene, and then you also get the character you just unlocked as with the scene. I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Like that would be a cool thing to them to do with future events to kind of have it that kind of template, because that would be actually like that's one of the things they fix when it comes to these updates, because most of the times the problem is with the updates for the other 2 games is that yeah, it's cool with costumes, they have these little cute animations and whatnot, but as soon as the update's over, it's like the costumes, useless. They don't do anything. They're just there to look pretty. They don't do anything else after that. The items are just there. They're just decorations. Meanwhile, with this one, it's kind of, you can argue to be like, well, it kind of adds to my overgrowing monster scarometer milestone, which makes me sad every time they ask me to fill it up. Because it's like, it's great when I have no items, but as soon as I got more items, the worse it gets.
I know that one event that I should probably save it for the next one, but yeah, because you mentioned an event that wasn't on this list, and
Yeah.
I picked one that wasn't on the list. But like I said, I had like a whole bunch that I wanted to list off that I wanted to see, but I guess we're just gonna go as a one at a time thing.
Yeah, I mean we've made it well with this beefy update for this beefy video, I would say, especially with our first time doing it. And if you like what you heard, then you get to hear more of it, because we'll try to do this every month at least, because to see what this game's content is like, and we go from there. But yeah, we'll see how this turns out. But I guess that's this episode. I mean, anything you want
Yeah.
to say before we go?
Check out my socials. Hashtag I'm a shill.
Yeah. If you're interested with his artwork, I will link him down below in the description, as well as in the pinned comment, and all that and more. And of course, if you like what you heard and you want to have suggestions of what you like to see or hear, what to have us discuss, questions and whatnot, feel free to leave them down below. We'll be sure to read them out and go about them, because we like to ramble on as we tell.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's the fun part about this. But anyways, with that being said, I've been Grim. This has been Vampire. And this was the HorrorTown TerrorVision Podcast, episode 1. I don't know what we're calling this episode, but we'll find out eventually. But yeah, hopefully you'll see us we'll see us in part 2. So until then, I guess, I don't know, I usually say something at the end, but I don't know if we should do a thing.
I usually end my videos with "see ya."
All right, well, goodbye. That's good. Goodbye.
See ya.